Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Getting the Win show. I am your host, Melissa T, the procrastination bully. Thank you so much for coming back, as promised, live and direct. Thank you guys so much for showing so much grace and love in all the comments last week when I mentioned that I would be out for a while. But I appreciate the love. Thank you so much. Um, So yeah, as promised, we back. And in today's episode, I'm picking up where I left off. I was going into the final pillar in the system, which is the launch pillar. So before I get into that, there is one clear message I want to make sure you hear loud and clear. All right? There's something I got to share with you, something I believe you need to hear. Okay? So just so you're aware, the situation I was dealing with had to do with breathing. Okay. Now, if you've never dealt with asthma before, I pray you never do. Okay. Like, seriously, that is not anything I wish on even my worst enemy. Like, seriously. I was in and out of the ER more than once, I'll say that. And the lesson that I learned from the experience that I want to make sure I share with you is that your breath is the most important thing that you have. Your breath is the most important thing that you have. And without your breath, you don't have your voice because the air we breathe gives power to our voices. And we can't speak without breath. So if you are still sitting on that luxury item, especially if that luxury item of yours is a book, allow me to lovingly challenge you to use your voice. Even if you're someone that doesn't struggle with asthma, doesn't struggle with any breathing issues, don't take your breath for granted. And as in the life giving situations that we see with CPR, sometimes your breath can save someone else's life. That book that's in you, that luxury item that is within you, can save somebody else's life or can inspire them to do the thing that they've been called to do in the world. That book that's in you as a result of your lived trauma or your major life transition, that's someone else's survival guide that they're waiting for. So if you hold your breath, others won't be able to breathe either. So this is my loving challenge to you. This is that thing that I need you to hear before we get into anything else today. Break your mute button. Not using your breath is you silencing yourself. You sitting on your book is you silencing yourself. That survival guide, somebody else needs that. Who are you to give it to them? The perfect person. Because they're going to hear it from you in your voice, in your tone. It has to come from you. So I want to lovingly charge you. Use your breath. Use your breath. Don't procrastinate anymore and make sure to fuel your voice. I broke my mute button after this experience. That's the lesson I've learned because I was someone who constantly put myself last, which is how I ended up in the situation that I ended up in, health wise. Okay. When you put yourself last, you end up paying the price. One, you can't show up as your best self because you're last, right? But two, the long term consequences are worse. I made the decision to put myself last a decade ago. I am now experiencing the consequences of that health wise. But look how long that took. So I am urging you, use your breath. Make every single breath count. Take full advantage. Okay? Let this be the loving push and loving reminder that that book that is in you needs to come out because your breath will be someone else's saving breath. Now that I got that out the way, thank you for listening and much love to you. Let me check the chat real quick. Thank you so much, Miss Laverne. I appreciate you. She says, welcome, Miss Melissa. I'm happy you're back. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. So let me get into the launch pillar. And there's a lot in here. Let me lead by saying that there's a lot in here. So as I promised in my posts, be ready to take notes. Be ready to take notes. So note number one, timing is everything. As you see on the caption, check the celebs. That is what I mean by that. If you want to increase your chances of getting on the lists, because that's what most people dream of, right? When they're publishing their book, they want to be best-selling authors. They don't just want to be authors, right? They want to be best-selling authors. And hey, this is one of those things that I'm sharing with you that I'm learning because, hey, I'm an 8-time self-published author. And for most of mine, I did not have a launch strategy. So what I'm sharing with you is the things I have learned myself. So timing is everything. If you if you have a date in mind that you want to launch your book officially to the world, start paying attention to others in your niche, celebrities that have books coming out around the same time. Or, you know what I mean? Make sure that there aren't any that are releasing books around the same time, because then they're going to get all the attention and everybody's money. Obviously, there are millions of authors in the world, right? We get it. But use that timing as a point of reference for yourself, because then you can move your goalpost accordingly. If somebody like a Mel Robbins, like in my example, she just did a launch, so we're good. She just had a New York Times bestselling book called The Let Them Theory. But say, for instance, I wanted to publish my book around the same time as hers, there's no way I would have been able to do that. Like, mm-mm, mm-mm. So I would either have to move my published date before hers or at least a month after hers or something, you know? So that's one keynote in terms of your launch. When you're picking your launch date, also research celebrities and others in your niche to see when they might have books coming out, and then situate your date accordingly. Note number two, create a PR blitz. Okay. This is that moment where you become as visible as possible. You've likely seen it too. If you're on YouTube, if you're on social media, or even if you just consume regular news, you can always kind of tell when somebody's starting to make the rounds because you're starting to see their face in more than one place. One day you'll see them on Good Morning America, the next you'll see them on the Today Show, the next you'll see them. Like, you'll start to see more of them. And the first question you're likely thinking is, okay, what are they selling? 9 times out of 10, it's a book. 9 times out of 10, it's a book. Or it's usually a movie that's coming out or an album they're releasing, but they're pushing something. And that's what it is. It's their PR blitz. So you can craft a strategy yourself using the AI tools, because trust me, you can ask ChatGPT to do this. You can ask Perplexity.ai to do this. Like, you can ask any of them. They will give you a strategy, like step-by-step action plan, everything. So you can craft the strategy yourself using your AI tools, or you can hire an experienced PR firm to do it for you. There are plenty of PR firms that are specific for authors. So not all PR firms are created equal. Some are, the bigger ones that are general PR for any kind of talent. But if you want to really ensure results, research the ones that are niche to authors and niche to best-selling authors, since that's what your goal is, right? So one example would be someone like Rory Vaden, Roryvaden. So someone like him, that is part of his firm. Like he coaches and guides authors to become New York Times bestselling authors, which is how UOU became a New York Times bestselling book. E.T. paid Rory the 5 figures, and lo and behold, E.T. is now part of a very elite club. The New York Times bestselling authors, that is a whole elite group of people, a whole other mastermind of people. But make sure to look into that, okay? You will definitely need to have a PR blitz for your launch because you need to be visible. There's a speaker who hails from England. Her name is Haley Mulenda. Her new last name Record because she's now married. Congrats to her. But you'll likely see her as Mrs. Record if you look her up on social media. That's her handle. But she had a phrase in a recent talk that stuck with me. She spoke at our UOU Mastermind meetup back in February. And one of the things she said to us is, "You're too broke to not be visible." And I was so taken aback when I heard her say that. But I love that push though. And that is true. People can't partake of whatever it is you have to offer if they don't see you or they don't know you. So you have to become as visible as possible, as findable as possible, so people can buy what you're selling. In this case, we're talking about books. So you got to be as visible as possible. So either craft a strategy yourself using your AI tools or hire somebody to do it. Hire a firm or a person, a consultant to do it. So here are a couple things within this very pillar. You're targeting TV, podcasts, online media, and print magazines in your niche. I talked about this in the previous episode in terms of the marketing pillar, right? We did get into the importance of pitching podcasts and like lining up these media outlets in your niche. So we're talking all of them: TV, podcasts, online, print. Be everywhere. You want to be everywhere. You want to be visible. So you'll want to line up interviews. You want to line up book reviews as well and guest articles for 2 to 3 months before and after the launch. Like you want to pad that around. And the reason why you see me put after the launch is that if your goal is to make a bestseller list, you've got to maintain consistent sales a little bit after the launch too. It's not just the 10,000 the 10,000 copies within the first week. Like you want to keep the sales going even after that. So you'll want to pad that around as part of your launch strategy, your PR blitz strategy. Okay. A recommendation to get numbers that high. Hey, book 50 high audience podcasts within those 2 to 3 months leading up to your book launch. Like again, as visible as possible, as visible as possible. Okay. Now, one great example of this is E.T. himself, because one thing he told Rory was he absolutely was not doing national TV. He said it wasn't worth his time or his investment to have to leave his family, or in his case, his wife, because they're now empty nesters. Both their kids are grown, but they're working on maintaining the bliss in their marriage. And he was like, yeah, no, it's not worth the travel and what it does to, how it affects my wife's body, how it might affect mine, to just do a 5-minute segment on a national show. Like I'm not doing all of that. So Rory crafted a podcast heavy strategy. ET only did, I want to say, 3 in-person interviews, one of which was Tom Bilyeu on Impact Theory, because I watched that interview. I want to say he did another one. This one wasn't in person, but it was virtual. He did an interview with Ed Milet, and there are 1 or 2 other ones. That's it. The rest of it was all podcasts, but it worked. And then the beauty with ET is that he had his own podcast. with over 100,000 listeners. And of course, his YouTube channel has 1 point something million subscribers. So he leveraged his own audience and chose to do podcasts since he didn't want to do the in person, and still made the New York Times bestseller list. Okay. But high audience, that is a priority when you're booking these. And as I mentioned in my previous episode, you can use your AI tool to do that search, not only to find the podcasts themselves, but to actually find the contact persons for each of those podcasts to pitch them and let them know about your book. Okay. So we're going to move on to the next note in the launch pillar: to pre-order or not to pre-order. Now, pre-orders are pretty common. Like, you might feel like, well, of course you want to do that. In the sales part, it does matter because pre-orders contribute to the first week of sales. They count toward that first week of sales. The reason I present it to you as a choice is that, going back to the foundation pillar, what do you want your book to do? Does it need to be a bestseller? Like, does it have to be on the bestseller lists? Or do you prefer it to be a calling card for speaking engagements? Do you prefer it to be distributed in academic institutions? Do you prefer it to be something that you package and distribute yourself with additional swag because you have a different type of branding for the book that you want to produce? To pre-order or not to pre-order? Once you're clear on that purpose, you can decide whether or not you want to do that. Because for that latter option, when you're doing stuff that's custom, you're likely going to self-publish instead of hybrid or traditionally publish, in which case the pre-orders are not something you have to do. When it comes to that, that's not a must. If your goal is to make it onto the bestseller lists, then yeah, pre-orders are going to be a priority for you. And you'll want to hybrid publish or traditionally publish in that case. The self-publishing, where it comes to the pre-order, that's going to help you if you prefer to do that first and you want to make sure not to waste time. If you're someone that you want to make sure you get a move on getting your book published, and you will eventually get to pitching your book to a traditional publisher, then by all means, you can still go ahead and pursue that pre-order strategy. But I wanted to present this to you so you know that setting up pre-orders for your book are not a must. It's not a must. It depends on what you want your book to do. Okay. So I just want to share that with you. Here's the thing to note: with pre-orders, you want to make sure your book is being listed on the platforms that you're seeing on your screen. So Amazon.com, BarnesandNoble.com, Books a Million, and then IndieBound and Bookshop.org. Those two kind of overlap. IndieBound is the previous distributor that was under the ABA, like the American Bookstore Association or Booksellers Association. And then bookshop.org took that over. So that's why you're seeing both of those names on the screen. It's just that there are some independent bookstores listed on IndieBound still that count towards the bestseller lists. So keep both of those in mind: IndieBound and bookshop.org. Keep both in mind for that. Okay. Now, there are different distributors that will make this possible. So if you're going through KDP only, obviously that's Amazon only, like, period. Amazon's only prioritizing their own platform. If you go through Ingram Spark allows you to place pre-orders on Amazon. So just make sure that if you're going to do that, that you turn off your Amazon stuff. Like, make sure you're not, there's a way to do it where you're turning off your settings in Ingram Spark so that your Amazon stuff, you're not causing duplicate distribution, because that could be an issue. Okay. But there's Draft to Digital. I talked about that in one of the previous videos. So there are several different platforms that you can distribute that will allow for pre-order, and you'll want to make sure you have those settings in place, okay? But make sure you take those down, do the screenshot if you're a screenshot kind of person, or if you're taking notes, take note of that, okay? Now, another note with the pre-orders, incentivize them, of course, right? So offer some bonuses, offer some early chapters, some exclusive video content, like allow folks to want to pre-order your book, give them a taste of your book. You know what I mean? So yeah, be sure to incentivize them. And once again, the importance with the pre-orders is they count towards your first week. They count towards launch week. Pillar note number 4, bulk orders. I want to definitely go over this because ET was generous enough to talk about this during his experience with UOU. As you can see in the sub caption here, you do want to target large organizations. So doing joint ventures, doing speaking engagements, you want to engage schools and corporations, nonprofits for volume orders, because how else can you get 10,000 copies quickly, right? You do want high volume orders. Here is the caveat with the bulk orders, and this is the thing that ET pointed out. If you let a corporation or a school just order 400 books and your goal is to get on a bestsellers list, it'll count as one sale. It'll count as one sale. So as you see in the caption there, redirect those bulk orders through tools like BookPal or Porchlight. Okay. So for any corporate clients that book you and they're ordering multiple copies of your book, just make sure that they have those orders going through individually so that they report to the bestsellers lists. Okay. That's the bulk order caveat. If you have one school order 400 copies of the book, that's one order. Yeah, you got to move 400 copies, but the bestseller list only see that as one copy. So BookPal or Porchlight, make a note of that. Okay. And then with any organization, ask them if there is a way to have their people individually order copies of the book. Okay. Now, number 5. Here's the distribution list in general. This isn't, some of these you've seen earlier when we talked about the pre-order, but this is the full distribution list that you want your book to be available on. And again, in a previous episode, I talked about several of those platforms that make this possible. So platforms like Draft to Digital, Ingram Spark, Baker and Taylor, all of these things. Like these companies that you're seeing here are where you want your book to be found, to be able to be distributed. Because to make it onto the bestsellers lists, your book has to be nationally available, like across multiple platforms, not just Amazon, not just Barnes and Noble, not just Books A Million. It has to be available across all of them. Okay. So take a note of those, do your screenshot, write all of them things down. The game changer for me was learning about Hudson Booksellers, which that's how people's books get into airports. And I'm like, that's awesome. I love that there's a way to do that. Like there's a distribution platform for that. Okay. In the past, that was only available through traditional publishers. That kind of information, strictly through traditional publishers, because they have the access, they have the relationships. And still continue to keep that in consideration in the back of your mind if you want to do the hybrid publishing model where you're half indie, half traditional, or like fully traditional. Okay. Powell's Books is there specifically because that is a bookstore in Oregon that actually reports to the New York Times. They report their sales to the New York Times. So it's interesting how that one bookstore has that much influence. But yeah, the ABA you see there, like do your research on that. Use your AI tools for that. Use your AI tools for that, okay? Now, launch pillar number 6 or note number 6. You want to create a 7 to 10 email sequence for the week before and launch week. So remember, in one of the earlier pillars, I talked about the importance of building an email list, because you want to have people along for the ride the whole time, because people want to be involved in something bigger than themselves. So if you've been keeping people along for the ride this whole time, launch week is when you're doing the big push, or like leading up to launch week. So that's 7 to 10 email sequence. Include fun stuff like countdowns, incentives that give them fast action bonuses or incentives in your email sequence to keep up with those pre-orders. Have them do what's called UGC, user generated content. So if they've gotten their copy of the book already, have them do social media posts for you. Like, hey, I've got my copy of this and this. You've likely seen it. You've likely seen it. Somebody on their Instagram, they got their copy of their favorite person's new book. They're saying this book is awesome. It changed my life, yada, yada, yada. Like, this is what you want your folks to be doing. And for your launch, you'll want to have a launch team of roughly 200 to 500 people. These are the people that are evangelizing your book for you. Okay. And your launch team, you'll want to have developed within like 6 to 12 months of the launch. I mentioned that in a previous episode, because you need them beating that drum as often as possible. So create a 7 to 10 email sequence for your folks leading up to launch week and during launch week. Okay. Number 7, you got to do the book tour. Got to do the book tour, whether in person or virtual. So this is slightly different from the PR Blitz, whereas the PR Blitz, you're doing the interviews, people asking questions, who are you? What's your book about? That kind of thing. A book tour is more so like you doing your own events. It's your own stages. But make sure you have 10 stops that have guaranteed audiences. So this goes back to the importance of joint ventures. So online summits, I talked about this in the previous episode, the marketing pillar, virtual summits, virtual conferences, that kind of thing. Or you're doing a book tour and it's like, I'm going to these different cities. We meeting up and we talking about the book. A great example of this is most recently Tabitha Brown. She recently did a book tour. She released a children's book. And before that, last year, she had done a book tour for her book, I've Done a New Thing. I think it's called I've Done a New Thing. It was a purple cover, beautiful, vibrant book. She picked her handful of cities and she bounced from city to city, talking about her book, talking about what it's about, the transformation that she's offering for people, the message that's within the book, all the things. And in between the two books, she and her husband had done a tour for the launch of their fragrance. They have a Tab and Chance fragrance. And since she has, a popular podcast, like they have their YouTube channel and they always have Fridays with Tab and Chance, they did in-person events, Fridays with Tab and Chance, all over the country. And they were doing conversations about relationships and marriage, and their perfume, their fragrance line is 2 different perfumes, one for him, one for her. And it was in the shape of like the spooning. It was so cute. You can look it up. But yeah, once you're doing a launch, the tour is that next step, because now you're really stepping out and letting folks know, here is my thing, and here is how it can transform your life. Here is how it can make your life better. So do a live or virtual. If you can't afford to do the live events, no worries at all. It is all good. You can do them virtually. And let's be honest, like after the pandemic, we're kind of used to that now. So doing a virtual tour is perfectly fine. Okay. Let me head into the chat because I went over a lot. Yeah. Thank you guys so much for chiming in the comments. I appreciate you. And by all means, ask any questions you have about this. I know I ran through a lot just now. Shout out to Ms. Rosalie. Happy Wednesday. Goal getters and winners for sure. Thank you. Good to see you right back where you love to be. Thank you. Shout out to Daniel. Hey, what's up, man? Thanks so much for tuning in. Such great information. Appreciate you, Miss Rosalie. And of course, Miss Sonia, thank you so much. I appreciate your kind words. Appreciate your kind words. But yeah, if you have any questions about anything I just went over, by all means, drop them in the comments. As you can see, I'm looking at them live. So I know that was a whole lot. So just a quick recap. Timing is everything. So make sure you're checking your timing. Make sure you're not doing your launch around the same time as any other major celebrities that would suck up all the attention and all the money, honestly. And then, of course, the PR blitz. You're gonna need a strategy for the three months, even 6 if you want, leading up to the launch. Full PR blitz. You can have AI do it for you or hire somebody else to do it, okay? Decide whether you're going to do the pre-order or not. If you're strictly self-publishing, that's not a priority. You don't have to do that. If you want to make the bestseller lists, then yes, you're going to want your book available for pre-order because those are going to count towards launch week, okay? Then a recap with the bulk orders. Include this in your strategy. You want bulk orders. Just remember that you've got to make sure that you're splitting up the bulk orders so they count individually towards the bestseller list. So those two tools, BookPal or Porchlight, okay? And then recapping number 5, the full distribution list, because you want your book across the country, available through distributors across the country, at least starting in the US. Because this isn't limited to just the US either. Because the next step that other traditional authors do as well, and you've likely seen them, is getting into other languages, like distributing their books in other languages around the world, because then that also adds to book sales. That increases your numbers for sure. And then this next pillar, that email sequence, you'll definitely want to be talking to your audience as you're heading into launch week. Do a live or virtual book tour. Like during launch week, set up that live tour. Whether virtual or in person, set up a tour. Make it exciting, make it fun. Even Mel Robbins, for this most recent Let Them Theory book release, she did one. She went all over national media, of course. She did her interview with Oprah and everything. But yeah, like once the book actually launched, she did her own multi-city book tour. And she chronicled all of it on her social media. So you'll be able to take a look at that. If that's something you want to look at as an example, by all means, check out her social media. You can check out her YouTube or her Instagram. Mel Robbins, Mel with 1 L, Robbins with 2 B's. Okay. So check in the comments in the chat. So far, looks like you guys are good. Thank you again for tuning in. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but the other reminder I do want to give you is my message from before, just to close this out. Remember that your breath matters, okay? Do not take it for granted. Your breath matters, and it's the fuel for your voice. Be done with silencing yourself. Your book has to get out here. Your luxury item has to get out here. Take full advantage of the breath you have, especially if you don't need to be intentional like I do. Every single breath is intentional for me. Be as intentional as I am, though. Use your breath to fuel your voice and get your book out. I've got my next Voice Fuel virtual writing workshop coming up in July, Tuesday, July 29th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern. So if you're interested in that, I will put the link in the description for you. That way you can sign up for that, because I promise you, that is something that we all need, that voice fuel. Okay. So let me put that link in there for you. But yeah, make sure that if you have any questions, you reach out to me, whether in the comments here in real time, or follow me on Instagram, Pinterest, and Threads. And here go all the socials. All right. They're up on your screen. And as you can see on the bottom there, I am now on TikTok, which is crazy, y'all. I did not expect to be on TikTok, but I am officially over there. So for now, there's one video, but it's all good. We're going to build that up. We're going to build that up. So be sure to follow me over there as well. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Here is the link for the workshop for you. And that way you can take a look there. If you're interested in the workshop, that is the link for it. So sign up for that one. That's coming up July 29th. It is free, 90 minutes. And I'm breaking down my entire system. The system that you've been watching over these last few episodes, I go into it in detail in that free workshop, and you see it cohesively in one nutshell. All right. So if that's something you're interested in, sign up there, do that screenshot, head over there and sign up. And subscribe on YouTube for me if you haven't yet, at Getting the Win on YouTube. Follow me on IG, Threads, and Pinterest at Getting the Win Show. On TikTok, Melissa T. Writes. Okay. And if you're someone who's on LinkedIn, just look up my name, Melissa Thomas. 2 L's and 2 S's. I'm there as well. Okay. So if you have any questions, I'm available. More than happy to help. It is always a pleasure. So thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for all the love again last week. I appreciate you. And in the meantime, in between time, I will be back next week, because I will be going over some more of those distribution channels. Like I ran through those very quickly in this episode, but I do want to go over some more of those distribution channels with you, particularly ones that are going to allow you to distribute overseas, because that might be a goal of yours with your book. Like, sure, a US strategy is great, but yeah, the US has only a certain amount of hundreds of millions of people, right? Like 300 and something million people versus 8 billion, right? So stay tuned for next week's episode where I get into that. But in the meantime and between time, have a great and productive rest of your Wednesday and a great and productive rest of your week. Peace.